Hi everyone, and welcome back for our cheesy schnitzels and pressed Parmesan potatoes. This should be a pretty short video. I only really need to show you different bits. Again, we are looking at how to feed a family fairly cheaply. This one, because of the meat content, is slightly more expensive. So for a family of 4, it's going to be, I think, over our budget of 15, but if we did it for 2, would be well under, but that wasn't your assignments. But look, I know most of you are finished now, so we'll just get on with it. So we are going to crumb our chicken first. So to do that, you're going to need 1 cup of breadcrumbs. Now, as usual, our recipe's for 2, but I usually take this opportunity to feed my family. So I'm going to make it for 4, means I'm going to have to double it. So that's 2 cups of flour. I've got 1. Actually, I'm showing you the wrong thing. We're going to put it on a plate. It's way easier. All right, so there's 1 cup. This is not so important that you have to measure it out exactly. We'll just press that out like that. We will be popping in everything else. And as usual, my hair is tied back, my hands are clean, and I'm ready to cook. There are a few health and safety ones with this one. One will be on the knife handling, the other is the frying. So we'll go through that when we need to. So that's our 2. That's quite a lot, okay? You can actually mix that in a bowl beforehand, because we're about to add some Parmesan cheese as well. The recipe asks for 1/3 of a cup of grated Parmesan. Which I'm going to add now. There we go. Now remember, I'm doubling it, so I'm just going to pop the 2 in. There's quite a lot of cheese. I'm going to keep the cheese there because we will need that for the potatoes as well. All right, now let's just have a double check. So just for your own information, that is, if you're doing just 2, 1 cup of breadcrumbs, 1/3 of a cup of Parmesan cheese that has been grated. Okay. Okay. Oh, just double checking that I don't. Yes, I do. It's asking for a pinch of salt. I'm just going to grind some of the salt onto there. If I can actually get the lid off, that is. There we go. Okay, I'm putting slightly more on a pinch. But the actual cheese itself is quite salty. Basically, salt is used in the processing. Also, cheese is a food that's basically from milk and has had the liquid taken out of it. So it's actually quite a concentrated food anyway, which means it's got a lot of flavour. Okay, so that is my crumbing. I'm just going to leave that here over behind me for the time being. We're going to prep the coating. So for that, you're going to need 1 egg. Remember, I'm doubling it. That's why I've got the 2. In we go. And we also need some milk for that. Just making sure my hands are washed after I do that. We don't want egg getting into anything else, especially if it's something that is raw. 2 tablespoons of milk. There we go. I've got my little measurer there. Doesn't matter if you use low-fat or high-fat milk. Apparently I'm dropping everything now. So a couple of tablespoons. It is, so 1 tablespoon is 20, so we're going to need 40 mils. 1. And remember, like I said, you don't need to be exact. You can be a little bit non-exacting with this. If it was a cake or something, we would definitely need to make sure that we did it perfectly. But It's the coating for chicken. We don't really need it that much. Alright, so you can use a fork to do this. You can use a whisk to do this. Doesn't really matter. You don't have to whip it or anything, you're just combining. Okay. That's it. Okay. The other thing that we need is flour, and the flour is going to coat the chicken first. So, good idea to get another plate out. Just for our flour, it says a tablespoon. I think we'll use a little bit more than that, and spread it out over our plate, just to be on the safe side. Okay, so we might need a bit more of that though as we go. Just spread it out a little. Okay, and that's that done. So we've got our coating, so our egg coating, we've got our breadcrumbs, we've got our flour, which pretty much sees us right to go. Just making a bit of a space over here because it's looking a bit untidy in my workspace. So the next thing to do is to prepare the meat. Now in the recipe it says veal. Again, I'm substituting. And I keep doing this because I want you guys to basically see that it's easy to use different things depending on your flavour. Also your budget. So it asks for yearling beef for this one. I've actually got chicken fillets, which at the moment is more expensive. There's a bit of a chicken shortage at the moment. So I've basically got one chicken fillet. Now we've got the grizzly side there. This doesn't have the extra section on it. Quite often they do. It's very well thawed, but I'm going to cut it. I'm going to show you how to do it. With the chicken, it's actually easier to cut it when it's not this thawed. If it's slightly frozen, it holds its shape a little bit. It's easier to actually cut through evenly. I took this out much earlier today, so it's completely defrosted, so that makes it a little bit harder. The trick for this is to keep your knife the same width from the cutting board or whatever you're cutting on. You are going to get a very thin edge down this one just because with the breast it's fatter here than it is here. Okay, so keep your hand flat, press down reasonably firmly, have a look where you are. You need to keep that knife really straight as well. So I'm going to go slowly. Going to keep an eye on it as I go and try and make sure that I'm doing this really neatly and at the same angle. The trick is probably to lift it a little at the end there because it might go through. All right, and then you end up with two at approximately the same width, and that's what you need because you're going to be cooking them together. This one's a little bit fatter, but I'm going to be doing two. So what I will probably do is cook that's the top section. I'll probably cook the bottom section with the other bottom section. If you end up cutting it like this, you've got two options. For chicken, you can use paper towel over the top and hammer it down, or you can roll it in or wrap it in some plastic wrap and you can roll it out like with a rolling pin. The recipe asks for the yearling beef and to hammer it out. Most people I know don't have a mallet to do that. So what you can do is use your rolling pin. Put some paper over the top and just whack it with the rolling pin to even it out to the same width. All right, and we obviously need the same width because we need to make sure that it's going to cook at the same in the same way or at the same time, because we'll be cooking two in the pan at once. I'm definitely going to wash my hands again. Raw chicken is something that We don't want getting onto anything else at all. Okay, you can definitely trim your chicken if you need to. Okay. All right, so I have my tray here. This is where my chicken is going to go once it's been done. And you're going to crumb it and sit it in the fridge for 20 minutes. All right, so let me show you how to do this, and then we will be able to move on to the next section. All right. So we're going to make sure our chicken or our beef gets well coated in flour. It's a really important bit. A lot of people will just put it straight in the egg and then in the crumbs. Depending on the sort of crumb you want, those really heavily crumbed foods usually go through 2 lots of crumbing, but this is usually good. Protects the chicken a little, keeps it nice, and gives the crumb something to really cling on. All right, so once we've done that and we've made sure it's really well coated, a little quick dip in there. Okay, and then straight into our crumbs. I'm going to go over it and make sure it's got a nice crumb on both sides. Also the ends, so don't worry about just patting it on there. It'll soak through into the egg fairly well, and that's what you want. You don't want a thin crumb. You want it nice and delicious and crummy. Okay, so that's that one. I'm just going to set it in the tray. We'll get the other one into the flour. And remember I said that you might need more flour than it says in the recipe. I've always found that. That's why I added a bit more in, because I like to get mine nice and floured, get it all in there. Potentially I will need some more. All right, so into our egg mixture. Over we go and straight into there. There we go. Already looking good. Obviously my hands are disgusting now. That's okay, it's just part of it. All right, and then I pop it into the tray. So what I'm going to do is I'll just show you that quickly before I put it into the fridge. Just a tip, when you try to get the stuff off your fingers from this, just make sure that you use cold water and not really hot water. The hot water will tend to mix with the flour and the coating, gelatinizes, especially with and it makes everything really sticky and you can't get it off properly. So cold water when you're dealing with flour and crumbing. There you go. So those are going to go into the fridge for as long as I can. Well, actually 20 minutes. It's going to take a bit longer. I'm going to start the potatoes right here and right now. Okay, I'm just going to pop those in. I don't think I'm going to pop these in. We went shopping. We've got so much food in here. I don't know if I can even fit it in there. Okay. That could end up... Oh, shoot. That did end up being a disaster. Okay, guys. Here's my tip for the day. Don't put your stuff in an overcrowded fridge. Because it's a disaster. All right. Just very quickly, before I go from this section, what I have done is I've washed the potatoes that I'm going to use. It says 2 in the thing. Remember, I'm doubling it, so I've got 4. Mine are huge. All right, these potatoes are big potatoes. So what I am going to do is give them a bit longer. It says to put them in the microwave for about 5 minutes. I'm going to give these a little bit longer. I've washed them. I put them on the plate. I'm going to stab them a couple of times just through the skin. So if there's any pressure that builds up in there, there'll be a place for that pressure to go through the microwave and the skin won't split, or that will be kept to a minimum. These are going to go in for about 8 minutes, and I'm going to get all this done or get this bit sorted while I've got my schnitzels in the fridge, hopefully when I can actually fit them in there. All right, so I'm going to stop now and I will see you back shortly. Okay, back again. My potatoes are ready. So they've come out of the microwave. They are going to go into an oven-safe dish. They're going to go in for about 20 minutes. While they're in, obviously the schnitzels are in the fridge, still setting. So they're just going to go in there and straight into the oven for 20 minutes. While they're in there, I'm going to prepare the filling for the top for when they come out, and I'm going to probably or possibly start cooking the schnitzels. I have quite a few. I ended up with an extra chicken fillet, so I just did it all. So this goes in for 20 minutes. After 20 minutes, they come out. You've got to put the filling on, but you press them first. So pressing them down and then popping the filling on the top. All right, so they're going to go in for 20 minutes. It's a 200-degree oven. Now, what we're going to do, I actually have, instead of Parmesan cheese for the top of the potatoes, I've got normal cheese. None of my, I can't even call them kids. They're basically adults, but they won't eat the Parmesan. So if you have got younger children than I do, and they don't want to, or you think they won't like something as sharp as Parmesan, because it is a strong flavour, especially when kids are little, the way they perceive flavour is slightly different. So putting on just some normal cheese is a good idea. All right. So what we're going to do is chop up our spring onions. So just make sure if there's any raggy ones on the outside, anything that looks a bit disgusting, just take it off. Okay. Just double check it. These have already been washed, but if you see anything on there that needs to come off, because, well, as you'll see, they roll inside, so sometimes you can end up with dirt on the inside. You take off the bit that I call the beard. It's actually the roots, but that's just how I refer to it. Okay, now the trick now is to just slice it. For a recipe, you usually just use this bit here. So you'd stop where it starts to not be as firm, which for this one, it's actually about here. This end, you can still definitely use for garnish, so just bear that in mind. So you just, now there's a way to do this if you want to. You can slightly put your knuckle out and use that to guide your knife so that they end up pretty much the same size. Of course, you don't have to do that, but I'm suggesting you use your spider grip like that, just to make sure that your fingers stay safe. They're pretty easy to cut rather. Easy to jump through. Once you start to get to the green end, you need to use a bit of a firmer cut on them because they're a bit harder. So remember, you only need one of these. Okay, I'm starting to get to the bit that we might consider for garnish now. Okay, so this bit here, we could easily just get rid of that and cut it on the side, or you can cut it just straight across, just very finely if you're going to garnish with it. You don't want heaps, and it just adds a bit of a extra colour and a bit of extra onion flavour to the top. Okay, so this, all that goes on is you're going to need a spray of olive oil. You're going to need your spring onions, and you're going to need your cheese. So when it's time for me to get the potatoes out and put that together, we'll come back then and I will show you how to fry off those 2 schnitzels, and that will be us. Okay, welcome back. It's been 20 minutes. I'm just going to get the potatoes out of the oven. There we go. They're actually looking pretty good. A bit browned on the top. I'll show you that. See? Got that bit of browning there. There's no oil in the bottom of this, which is fine. It shouldn't stick if you're worried. Just give it a bit of a move around. Now what we're going to do is squash them, just like that. You'll hear them break a little. Some of that filling will come out. Make them nice and flat. Now, if there's a lot of resistance at this point, you can probably take it that they need to go in for a bit longer. Potatoes can be a little bit difficult sometimes to get the timing right, just because they're different sizes. I didn't give these an extra time in the oven, but I did, if you remember, give them extra time in the microwave. Okay, a bit of a spray. Remember to spray over a bench. Just be careful with that. Shouldn't take too much of a spray. Now then, I've got my Parmesan. So I'm having a Parmesan one. None of my kids want a Parmesan one. So, like I said before, they will just get cheese like that over the top. That's probably right. I think I might put a little bit more Parmesan on mine, but not much. There we go. We've sprayed it. It doesn't ask for salt and pepper over the top, and for health reasons, you don't want to add too much salt. But here we go. Just going to put a little bit over the top. Doesn't call for it, like I said. This is purely personal choice. There we go. Done. And that's it. That goes back into the oven for 10 minutes. Okay, so while that's happening, or while we're doing that, we're going to, first of all, light the oven. Like the stovetop. Get our light on. You're coming over here with me at the moment. And we're going to fry off our stuff. So hopefully you can see everything there. There we go. So in here we've got our oil and we've got our butter. Also got all my bags over there in the corner, but you know. There we go. Not too high. Remember from last week, we know that the butter can be quite volatile. The reason that we have butter in this one is because it's going to give it a really nice golden crumb when it cooks. So I'm just going to get my out of the fridge. And we're just going to let that start to melt and get hot enough. Alright, I suggest you have tongs. You might also need the flip. There we go. And while I'm waiting, I'm just going to tidy up a little bit. You shouldn't need those. Done with the Parmesan. I'm going to be serving this with salad vegetables, so they're coming out now. And they're going over. Okay. Starting to get warm. And then just remember making sure that you don't leave the pan unattended. Once we start heating oil, it's very volatile. If there's any sprays, it can ignite, so you should never walk away. Handle always to the side, unless you're using it, obviously. But at that point, you put it back, just in case you knock it. Just be cautious. There's quite a lot of heat coming up from this one now. We want to get it really nice and warm. There should be quite a lot of oil in there as well. Now, if you are doing more than one, or two, excuse me, you might need to add a little bit more butter and some oil in. And you are going to end up with a little bit of scrapings on the bottom from the crumb. Okay? Just bear that in mind as well. Alright. Sounds like it's sizzling away quite nicely. I'm going to let it go just a little bit longer. Now I'm going to pop it in. I'm using my fingers, but I'm being really cautious at this point. If you don't want to use your fingers, get this, and in you go. Okay? Now just let it sit. You shouldn't need to move it around. You want to get a nice, even, crisp crumb on one side before you turn it over. Hopefully, sorry, I don't know if that switched off then. Hopefully, so I just said you need a nice crust. It's not very thick. It shouldn't take a whole lot of time to cook. You need to, though, viewer, just press it gently. See that it's firmed up. It's not really squashy, which is a good way to tell if it's cooked. For red meat, it's usually this sort of pressure here. If you can feel that there's not a lot of give, usually the meat's cooked. So if that's what you're doing with the beef, just press it and it has that feel to it. I'm getting a lot of heat up the side, so I'm just going to turn it down a little. You can really smell the Parmesan on this. You can actually put some lemon with this one. Another option, if you don't want to have the potatoes, is to do a Caesar salad and then chop this up to go on the top. Caesar salad usually has Parmesan in it in general. So that little extra Parmesan kick from this is actually really nice. Doing well. I might use this. So my pan is great. We use it for just about everything, so things can get all stuck on this one. So before you go too far, you can just loosen it a little, being careful there. You'll see the sides start to crisp up and get a bit brown too. So that's also a good indication of when you can possibly turn it. I'm going to go with now. So that's like crisped up on the side. It's looking pretty good actually. And it smells good. Just need to get some paper towel. Pop it on. If you, at this point, if you turn it up too high, the outside will cook before the inside does. You'll end up with a burnt schnitzel and a raw interior. So just keep a really good eye on that temperature. It should be nice and hot when you put it in, but it also needs to be nice and cool. So much cooler when you are cooking it through at this point, because, like I said, you don't want it raw on the inside. No matter what meat you choose, you don't want it raw. Not for a schnitzel. Then I'm going to loosen it a little. There we go. Really does smell delicious. When this is done, I'll switch off and I'll just let you have a look at it once it's served. But again, like I said, just be aware of the health and safety risks while frying. Definitely don't go away and leave this. You don't want the house to burn down. Okay, that one's ready. So I'm going to show you what it looks like. If I can actually get it out of here. It's being a little bit difficult, so I'm going to get this one. I popped it on paper towel just to soak up that extra. Okay, but there it is right there. You can see, hopefully, nice and crispy, and it's got a nice golden colour from the butter and from the cheese. I'm going to cook the rest, and then I'll plate up. Okay, everyone, there's my schnitzel. I'm just going to put one of the pressed potatoes on. Apparently I'm not, because it's being a little bit sticky. I did have to put a little bit more butter and oil in to my pan. I've got a couple more to do, but there we go. So that is the schnitzel, so the Parmesan schnitzel with the pressed Parmesan potatoes, and I've served it with a Caesar for this one. Okay, hope you have fun cooking it or watching, and I will see you next time. Bye, guys.